You have just made a choice. You clicked on this video, and that's it. At best, you will get a few minutes of entertainment, and at worst, you will leave disappointed, having wasted a couple of seconds. Right? The choice seems insignificant. But it isn't. Your choice is now mine forever. However you might try to change it in spite, it will only lead to more choices being made. More decisions being frozen forever in the ether of your and my life. Let's have a fun thought experiment. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself in 2 years' time. Maybe you now have huge muscles, or a fat bank account, or maybe you just cleaned out that one snack wrapping that fell underneath your wardrobe. Right, got it? Now, imagine yourself in 2 years' time, but not having chosen to click on this video.
Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Hopefully, it's the same future self. You don't think some random man on the internet will meaningfully change the course of your life, right? However, a Japanese man by the name of Masaki Yuasa based a story on a similar thought experiment, and in 2010 made a surrealist anime masterpiece that very well could. Let me be your bridge and give you a few reasons why you should give a fuck about it. Watashi is a brand new university freshman. All he seeks is a so-called rose-colored campus life, which he always fantasized about. He looks for this imaginary life by joining the tennis club, where he would surely meet the raven-haired maidens of his dreams and live his ideal life. However, as he has no social or tennis skills, he quickly ends up at the edge of the social circle. There he meets Oz, a yokai-looking man filled with ill intent, with whom he is, by circumstance, quickly forced to become friends with. Jealous of other people's relationships, the two turn villainous, trying to tear love from every citizen in the city. 2 years have passed, and as he flees from one of his crimes, he meets an old fortune teller, who tells him a very crucial bit of information. That his opportunity is always dangling before his eyes. This is meant literally. His opportunity is a romance with Akashi, an underclassman from the engineering club. The key possibly leading to this relationship literally dangling in front of his eyes every time he comes home to his room. He tries to capture this opportunity, but anxiety overcomes him, and he fails to deliver the charm to her. And as we near the end of the episode, Watashi is a brand new university freshman. All he seeks is a so-called rose-colored campus life, which he always fantasized about. He looks for this imaginary life by joining the cinema club, where he would surely meet the raven-haired maidens of his dreams and live his ideal life. However, as he gets into an encounter with the leader of the club, he quickly ends up at the edge of the social circle. There he meets Oz, a yokai-looking man filled with ill intent, with whom he is, by circumstance, quickly forced to become friends with. Jealous of the leader's charisma, the two try to make better movies on their own, their only fan being Akashi, an underclassman from the engineering club. 2 years have passed, and as he wanders around aimlessly, he meets an old fortune teller, who tells him a very crucial bit of information. That his opportunity is always dangling before his eyes. This is meant literally. His opportunity is a romance with Akashi, an underclassman from the engineering club. The key possibly leading to this relationship literally dangling in front of his eyes every time he comes home to his room. He, this time, doesn't decide to pursue romanticism, and instead finishes a slander film on the leader of the club, who is revealed to be a pervert and an extreme weirdo. And as we near the end of the episode, Watashi is a brand new university freshman. All he seeks is a so-called rose-colored campus life, which he always fantasized about. He looks for this imaginary life by joining the cycling club, where he would surely meet the raven-haired maidens of his dreams and live his ideal life. There he meets Oz, a yokai-looking man filled with ill intent, with whom he is, by circumstance, quickly forced to become friends with. However, he isn't athletic enough to match this highly competitive club, so he decides to dedicate his following 2 years to creating the perfect bike to carry him to victory. Upon finishing the bike, however, it is hastily stolen by the Cheery Cycle Cleanup Corps. After returning to Kyoto, after finishing a strenuous race on his old bike, he meets an old fortune teller, who tells him a very crucial bit of information: that his opportunity is always dangling before his eyes. This is meant literally. His opportunity is a romance with Akashi, an underclassman from the engineering club, the key possibly leading to this relationship literally dangling in front of his eyes every time he comes home to his room. Because of his reliance on his bike, his body is in turn frail, which inadvertently leads him to Akashi-san, an underclassman genius engineer for the Birdman team. His frail body is perfect for a flying man, and so they decide to choose him as a pilot. He, however, overmotivated, trains his body and gains muscle, which loses him the place as a candidate. As he and Akashi are pursuing the Cheery Cycle Cleanup Corps, they find their leader, who turns out to be Oz, and find the stolen ship of the Birdman team. And as we near the end of the episode, as you have probably grown to realize, Tatami Galaxy's story isn't experienced on a linear timeline. The story is presented in episodic, Groundhog Day sort of scenarios, where at the end of every episode, Watashi goes back in time to his freshman year and is presented with a club choice, which determines the main course of this certain loop. This is the main theme and idea of the whole story, which we will dwell on later on, but let's look at the stories themselves first. Shit's weird. It allows me to say it has a pyramid scheme cult and a cycling arc in one sentence, and it doesn't feel weird in the slightest. Even though these stories seem so far removed from each other, the repeating parts stick it all together beautifully. Whether we are stealing a sex doll or becoming a flying man, I can always expect the opening spiel after the opening, I can always meet the old lady around the 10-minute mark, I can always see an ill-intended face, no matter how the circumstances may try to disprove so. These repetitions started out as a cool quirk at best and a waste of time at worst, but by the latter half, they quickly turned into the only things keeping the hard-to-follow narrative in its rails. This is very much needed when considering that the MC does the every time he monologues, which is probably more often than side characters in Pokemon, and considering that you could write 5 essays on the themes of a single episode, with how brilliantly the dialogue and messages are written and conveyed. Now, these may sound like negatives to some people, however, in my eyes, they also make Tatami Galaxy one of the best anime to rewatch. There is so much to pay attention to, so much to miss, that every watch is a wholly different experience to the last. Even when thinking about the episodes while writing the script, I'm uncovering themes and messages that went totally over my head on my last watch. It's honestly a miracle how tight-packed and dense they managed to cram everything, without making it feel bloated to watch. For some people, however, it may feel bloated, and that's probably my only criticism of the show. As much as I have and will continue to praise it, I'm sure for some people it will just be too difficult and frustrating to enjoy. I can't solve that, as it's kind of expected when you put 24 episodes of story into 11, but I can offer you a few words of advice. Don't expect to get everything on the first try. Don't worry too much about not being able to read the monologues. There is still so much to enjoy in the art, character and base story aspects that you won't miss out on anything by not making a 2-hour philosophical analysis on the meaning of the master delivering a booklet. Enjoy the experience at your own pace, and if you want more in the future, come in for seconds, and the puzzle will make itself in front of your eyes. Okay, advice on how to enjoy the show is over, let's move on to the... From the setup I previously mentioned, it's apparent that the characters will be great. Think about it for a sec. Because we get to see the genres and themes shift so heavily from episode to episode, we in turn get to see the characters from many different angles as well. Let's take Joe Gasaki, the charismatic cinema club leader, as an example. In one episode, we get to see him as a near-dictator-level charismatic devil, with a twisted, perverted hobby of measuring his female cinema mates' breasts, all the while being in love with a realistic love doll. However, in another, we get to see him as a caring, loving partner to his doll girlfriend, trying his best to give her the best, while he seeks refuge from the dirty prank war with Master. Master is his own fully fledged character, having his own relationships and his own roles in different episodes and different angles you can look at him from, and you get what I'm going at. The relationships, roles, and everything about these different characters intertwine into a crazy spiderweb, which would probably get used as an example of how one would look for the Zodiac Killer. I can think of any of the major characters and all their different paths, relationships, and arcs could lead me into an eternal loop. That's how much intersection there is. However, as all paths lead to Rome, so do here all paths lead to Watashi. I love Watashi. His demeanor and ideas about the rose-colored campus life sound very naive, and they are, but they give him a very similar quality to Subaru from Re:Zero. We get to see him be cringe. We get to see him pretend to be confident in himself when he's not. We see him take L's at every corner. We see him overcome conflicting ideas about love, self-image, etc. We see him, as corny as this sounds, be human. He isn't perfect. He's quite a few miles from that, in fact, but we get to see him as a person, not a character. This is a pretty redundant characteristic nowadays where every character is so deep and flawed and imperfect, but it's genuinely the only way to describe him. I could simply call him naive, or valiant, cowardly, or pure-hearted, and basically the whole spectrum of adjectives, but it's simplest to just call him flawed. I scream at him to realize his true love is in front of his eyes. I scream at him to stop being a dumbass and notice what the people around him are saying. I scream at him to realize his whole ideology is flawed and implausible. Okay, I'm done. The ending manages to close him out perfectly, but I will leave that later for the spoiler segment. For those of you who haven't seen Tatami Galaxy yet, trust me, it won't leave you on a soft-dicked ending. That's a promise. If you know the name Masaki Yuasa, you know what good shit looks like, and Tatami Galaxy is no exception to that rule. The studio under his helm this time is good old Madhouse. We're in 2010, mind you, so basically a synonym for God, so you can naturally expect the art to be pretty good. In fact, you have actually been seeing the art this whole time! Wow! Basically, if you've got a working pair of eyes, you know this shit's goated, and that's as much as is needed to be said. The time has come. The time to discuss what made me make this video in the first place. I'm not gonna lie, I like me some philosophy. I have studied the greats from Marcus Aurelius through Confucius all the way to Gigok, and so it's quite apparent that I will pay a bit of extra attention to the themes and messages that a story derives. That's why Tatami Galaxy is almost too perfect of a toy for me. I could spend ages meticulously sifting through the abundance of minor themes present in every episode and deriving deep and life-changing messages from them, but for the sake of not wasting your time and not being a pretentious prick, let's focus on the main one. The theme at the core of Tatami Galaxy is choice. The way choices can change our lives, the stories they entail, and the despair they can bring if we try to control and force them. Watashi only dreams of his rose-colored campus life, of the beautiful maidens, of the sense of completion they would bring to his unsatisfied soul. But this sort of thinking only leads Watashi to suffering and delusion of the reality around him. He doesn't notice the opportunity for love with the only girl who truly loves him. He doesn't recognize his worst friend was the only one with him through thick and thin. He doesn't pay attention to the answers Master lays in front of him on a silver platter. He is blind. That is until episode 10, where he enters what I would like to call Purgatory. This purgatory of repeated 4.5 tatami big rooms attempts to remove his blindfold. The purgatory removes any attempt for a rose-colored campus life. Instead, forces him to wander through the same repeating tatami mats and corridors, to confront the reality that he lost in his delusions, to wander until he comes to realization.
バラ色のキャンパスライフなど存在せんのだ。なぜなら世の中はバラ色ではない。実に雑多な色をしているからね。
As he explores through the rooms with new knowledge, he grows to recognize these rooms apart from each other. He realizes each one of them belonged to a different him, from a different time. From the one stacked with pyramid scheme products to the one full of bicycle gear, he grows to realize these are windows to lives he hasn't lived, to potential happiness he didn't act on. Here he is now, a result of being clouded by a delusion and not capturing upon the happiness all his other hims could have experienced. The only thing left to wish for: a choice. A choice to go to any of these universes, good or bad. A choice to experience the joys of living. A choice to experience the clarity of seeing. A choice, not a delusional one like the one from his past, but one which he won't regret. A choice to start again. This is the strongest message out of the entirety of Tatami Galaxy for me. I know it's extremely corny and oversaid, but Tatami Galaxy teaches us that living in the present is the only way to happiness. If you try to forcibly bend life to your whim, life will bend back. The only way to prevent it, to let yourself get engulfed in it. To not focus on the future self you wish for, or to blame the past self you despise, but to live your life in the now. To try and act not in minutes, but in seconds. To try and take life as it comes. That is the message Tatami Galaxy hits home for me, and I can only hope you will find your own. So, did I convince you to give this anime a shot? I sure hope so. I didn't waste a week of my life for nothing. If you enjoyed this premium entertainment, give it a like, sub, and all that good jazz, and yeah, that's about it. Goodbye.